Recording.
Yay! Hi, everybody. This is your Aunt Sam.
And I'm Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear Right Company.
And this is actually a Right Company show for once.
Yes, it is.
For the first
And
time forever.
Well, no, we did Right Company last week with Until We Meet Again.
Oh. I was about to go all Frozen. Never mind. I forgot.
It's okay. So this is a true Right Company, but next week will not be, we'll talk about next week, but this is a very different show for us because most of the shows that we've watched are traditional boys love. Like, they are labeled as boys love. That is their target audience. It is usually derived from some sort of boys love novel of some sort and then adapted, or it's a boys love manga that's been adapted. This is different because this
is not a boys love.
It's not a boys love, but also this is a real life story.
Mm-hmm.
So this is basically the collective Facebook postings of a young gay man in Thailand, his experience with his friends group that became massively popular, and he was offered the option to adapt it into a television show. And so this is going to be a little bit different because we're not expecting to see the same tropes we normally see in boys love. It definitely is going to have a different kind of perspective and format than what you're typically going to see in boys love. And yeah, it's something very, very different, but something very, very needed, and something that I wish more people who watch boys love in Thailand specifically could watch before they watch boys love, because I think it gives a lot of very keen insights into the way that LGBT people in Thailand live, how they really live, and in a non-dramatic way, in a very approachable, very open way, rather than it being like super, super harsh and super dramatic and everything else. It's not an after school special, I promise. Yeah. So I kind of gave a bit of a synopsis in terms of like getting us started, but Mason, would you like to give us kind of a more condensed synopsis?
Sure, I'll try. It's essentially about 4 friends, 3 gay men and 1 lesbian woman, and they're all graduated. They all are trying to live their careers. I think they're mid-20s, probably? Mm-hmm. Probably mid-20s. And the show is kind of slice of life-ish, where you could pretty much pick up any episode at any time and you'd be fine. It's basically like a comedy sitcom kind of a show in that sense. Sort of like a Friends type thing, but not really. And that's kind of it. Like, there's not too many through plot lines. Gus, who's essentially the main character, he's the one that writes the Facebook post. It starts with him getting broken up with, and then he gets a boyfriend in the show. And, like, that's it. Like, it's very much just, like, funny gags that happen along the way.
Yes. And it does not have, to me, an ending. Or at least the first season doesn't. This is the first season of 2 seasons plus a movie. Mm-hmm. And when the last episode was over, I felt like, okay, next episode. And then I realized, no, sis, this is the end.
Yeah, that was a really unfun cliffhanger. I was like, oh, there's more time left on the episode. And it was just like an extra scene about eating ice cream. And I was like, fucking ice cream ad. I don't know if they get back together. Like,
yeah. So definitely you'll have to watch seasons 2 and the movie to kind of get more of a through line for what happened there. But I am going to say we're not reviewing season 2 and the movie because access is a little complicated on this one. We watched this on YouTube, the first season, and it's subbed on YouTube. The second season is on YouTube, but without English subs. The movie is on Netflix, and I heard that maybe season 2 might be on Netflix, but I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that. And so because of that, it didn't seem fair to try to review something that not everybody would have free access to. So that's why we probably won't be doing season 2 anytime soon unless access changes and it makes it towards more easily readily available to everybody. But right now we're just sticking with season 1. So let's start off with like impressions of characters. I would like to start with Natty because she is the character I dislike the most. I don't generally dislike all the characters, but Natty gets on my nerves.
I think she's sweet. What'd Natty do to you?
I think the thing that I don't like about Natty is that Natty is the only girl in this friend group. So it's a friend group of 3 gay men and 1 lesbian woman.
Uh-huh.
And Natty is like a complete ditz. Like, I don't know how she stays employed. I do not know how she graduated from college because she is so damn dumb.
She's not that dumb.
She's very dumb.
I feel like this has to be just a character type you don't like, because like in like a comedy show, there's always one person that's incredibly stupid, you know?
That is true. There's usually like one incredibly stupid person, and she is like, not only is she dumb, but also she has like a tone of voice that I find very grating.
Oh, well, she can't help with that.
No, she can't. Like they have these terrible scenes where they're doing karaoke and she's just screeching at the top of her lungs, and I'm like, I cannot get through this scene fast enough, please, Lord.
Because it's supposed to be her screeching.
I know it's supposed to be, but I feel like we spend too much time listening to her screech. Like outside of her being dumb and her being screechy, I think in terms of like her spirit as a person, I think is a good spirited person. She's not an evil person by any stretch of the imagination. She's very supportive to her friends, you know, she's there for them. But at the same time, like I said, she's just so incredibly dumb. Also, she has terrible taste in women.
Oh, yeah, Yoshi? Ugh.
Yeah.
That was maybe the funniest episode, though.
Yoshi's episode, okay.
The shitting in the car, come on! So good!
So this is a perfect microcosm of the type of person that Natty is. So Natty has a car that's her baby, and it's so precious to her that the visors that are at the front of the car, like along the roof, she still has the protective plastic on them. So she's also like, I guess insecure maybe. So she invites her friends to go with her on her first date with a girl she wants to date named Yoshi, who is a Korea boo basically. And while they're in the car getting ready to head to the date, they get stuck in rush hour traffic, and Natty needs to take a shit. And she almost takes a shit in her Louis Vuitton purse, but instead, because her friends are like, hell no, you can't do that to this purse, she pulls the plastic off the visor and takes a shit in this bag in her car in rush hour traffic. And then once they get to the place where she's having the date, Yoshi is there, but Yoshi has really bad hygiene. And so the friends are smelling it at the table and they're trying to be polite. And their stomachs are already turned from having to watch their other friend take a shit in the car. Mm-hmm. But like, for some reason, Natty can't tell that the person sitting next to her has like horrible BO. So the person's wearing a coat and everybody else is kind of like wearing not winter wear. So she's like, take off your coat, baby. And the person takes off their coat, and all of a sudden a wind machine is activated.
It's so over the top. It's so good.
It is. And then like Yoshi, who has armpit hair, which there's nothing wrong with a woman having armpit hair, because armpit hair is a natural human being thing, places this really dank, sweaty, smelly armpit on Natty's shoulders, like, come on, baby, let's go to the movies. And it's just like, Natty, I need you to do better. Like, the date would have been over the minute you took off the coat. Mm-hmm. Like, that would have just been it.
Yeah.
But also, Yoshi was not cute.
Yoshi wasn't cute and was weird. Like, she kept meowing. No.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
And, like, started the conversation like, 안녕하세요. Yeah. It was so bad. But that was a really funny episode, and gets into what this show is. This show is a series of vignettes that are like strung together by the people involved in the vignettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was one of those. And Yoshi gets brought up later on. Like later on when they're talking about like who Natty dates, they talk about Yoshi. And because she thinks that Yoshi's following her when they're driving to go see Golf in the hospital, because apparently like she never wrote Yoshi back after the first date. And so like things that happen in previous episodes do get brought up in later episodes, or they appear in later episodes, but it's not consistent. It's just like life. Sometimes you remember something that happened a while back and there it is again.
Yeah. Like you really could pick up any episode and like get the gist of it like that.
Yeah. So, okay, next let's talk about Kim. Low key, Kim is beautiful.
I think Gus is prettier.
I don't know. When they were doing the Lady Gaga type performance, I remember looking at Kim's face and makeup and thinking, wow, you're really pretty.
He does have really good bone structure.
Yeah. But Kim is a stewardess. Well, he prefers to be called a stewardess, but he's basically an airline steward. So he travels around the world for a Thai airline. And he's like the man whore of the group, even though it kind of feels unfair to call him the man whore because they're all pretty boy crazy. But he's the one who probably like gets the most active action throughout.
Yeah. I would say he's my least favorite just because, like if I had to pick, I feel like I am less interested in like his solo ventures, like, than I would be the other ones, you know?
Yeah. He gets a big story arc in season 2 because FYI, I saw season 2 through illicit means. But season 2, he gets a much bigger story arc and there's a lot more involved in his story. Season 2 is actually on the whole a lot more dramatic, has a lot more kind of like linked up plot points than this season does. But he has one of my favorite moments in the show when he hooks up with Champy. So they're in this bar.
One of the first 3 episodes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So all the friends are in the bar and this guy walks in and they talk about how like in the Thai gay community, masculine top is like well sought after, that, you know, all the guys are looking for somebody who like is very cis perceived, I guess, very heteronormative perceived. And Champy walks in and he's very like masculine and, you know, doesn't have a very effeminate voice or effeminate actions. And so Kim and Golf are kind of fighting over who's going to take Champy home. And Kim lies to Champy and says that Golf has the clap. And so you had to watch it. It sounds super mean, and it is mean, but they do it in a very comedic way. Anyway, so they go home to get it on. And Champy, they've already had oral sex together, I guess. And then Champy, like, bends over to reach for something. And there's a tattoo on his shoulder that is a butterfly landing on a champagne glass. And that's when Kim remembers that when he was in high school, he was a much more effeminate boy. But so was another person in his school who went by the name of Champagne, who had the exact same tattoo, and the person that he just had oral sex with is Champagne from high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's grossed out and like vomiting, like, I can't believe I gave oral sex to that bitch. So he's a mess. He's absolutely a mess. Kim is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
But Kim is like the one who gets the most action. At one point in the very last episode when they're all like thinking they're gonna die, he's like, I had a plan to sleep with one man from every country and I'm only halfway through.
That reminded me, there's a great SNL skit called Dongs All Over the World about just, it's like all the women of SNL and Anna Kendrick got together and they wrote a song called Dongs All Over the World about, you know, 9 o'clock, get off the plane. 9:01, destroy the dong. 9:03, get back on the plane. So in every country, it's filling up your passport with dongs. And that's him. And I
Yeah,
like that for him.
and he's a steward, so he's got the perfect job to pull this off.
Oh yeah. And he's hot,
Yeah.
so he could get it.
Yeah, so I mean, his character very much is a side character, but also like he's also the most I want to say aggressive in terms of like if he has an opinion about a situation or if he believes something to be the right perspective, he's very firm in his opinion.
Yes, they run into that a few times. One being the backseat of the cab, which was fun. There's a scene where they're going to basically they're putting on a little drag show at this company party. Golf set it up, and Gus and Kim went to go get the like whatever Golf had wanted them to wear, like these specific wigs and like elastic suits or whatever, like something Lady Gaga inspired. And they're in the backseat of this cab, and the cab driver, you know, little sus looking. He's just a little scary. And Kim is just going off on his opinions about the material and the wigs being cheap and how they didn't have enough of a budget and blah, 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 blah. And the cab driver just like grunts, pulls over, and they think they're gonna get shot. Turns out he's a sister, and he just had some extra wigs in the back, you know, because he used to perform now and again, but he doesn't do it anymore. So he's gonna give it to the younger generation. But that one, and then there's some stuff with Miss Pell, but I want to talk about her later. So
yeah. So my favorite character in this whole entire show is Golf. Golf is the one I'm in love with. I want to be friends with Golf. I think Golf is fucking amazing. And I do believe that the actor that plays Golf is actually a gay man in real life too.
Yeah.
But Golf is so funny because he just is a walking caricature in a lot of ways. Like his face is just elastic. He's a clown, but he's also like very endearing, and you feel a lot of like kinship with him throughout the show as well. For as like lively as you can tell that he's a real sweetheart as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked oh my god, I forgot. Oh, I liked that he could still get it, and that all of the jokes that he was involved with weren't just fat jokes. Like there were a couple, but overall, like his weight wasn't necessarily an issue with him getting it. You know, he was just a funny guy, which I appreciated that he's like super feminine and overweight, and like that wasn't, you know, the only things that made him funny and endearing. You know, those weren't the only jokes. He did have one great episode in the beginning with the compact mirror breaking.
Yes!
Because he buys like this really expensive compact like mirror with like foundation or whatever. And I forgot how, one reason or another, they're fighting over it, and there's a cop there, and it breaks, and he just goes bonkers. 10 out of 10.
Oh, that episode is so funny.
Yeah. It's such a funny show.
It is. This show is a laugh a minute. It's so funny throughout the entire thing. So from the very first episode, we understand that men like golf. And it's set up from the very first episode because he gets stumped after being in a 5-year relationship. But they're on the beach having their sad times, and this like German tourist is running across the beach. Immediately, Golf gets into a bikini and jumps in the water with him. And this guy is like cool with it. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go get us drinks. Like he's not afraid. He's not scared off. He doesn't get scared off until Golf comes out of the water and does not have on bikini bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is kind of like, ah. But outside of that, like, he's constantly like hooking up with people. And I don't know, he's just living his life. And he's living his life all the way to like his hair color, the way he dresses. Like he is just living completely out loud.
Yes, he has pink hair. He's having a good time. If he wants to get a man, sometimes he'll get up in drags and go to Starbucks. The scene with him and Gus in drag at Starbucks is great. And the barista's just like low-key flirting with both of them to bump up the, you know, sell more food and more drinks. And then the other barista's like, that's my boyfriend. And they're like, oh.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the guy who plays the flirty barista, he's super popular in Thailand. He has like 3.7 million followers on Instagram.
Oh. for him.
Yeah,
He was really cute.
His name is Bank. Bank Thitty. Thiti.
I bet he's making bank. Oh.
But also the guy that plays his boyfriend, interestingly enough, is also super popular in Thailand. He goes by the name of Jamie James, I believe, but he was in a show that a lot of people debate whether or not it was a boys' love called Great Men Academy. He's in Great Men Academy, and so is the kid who plays Top in the show.
Oh,
so
okay.
both of them are in Great Men Academy, and they both have like over 2 million followers each on Instagram.
Yeah.
So those guys are very, very popular. So now let's talk about the main character, because I feel like I can't talk about Top until I talk about him,
Right.
and that's Gus. So Gus is like the author of the story, like the real life author of the story. It's his basically avatar.
Right.
And most of the story is narrated by Gus. Like the intro and then the outro are narrated by Gus. It is very much Sex in the City in that way. We've got a writer writing their story.
XOXO, Gossip Girl. That's how we should have ended every fucking post. Just XOXO, Gossip Girl. Even if it was something nice.
So, Gus is a wannabe writer. I'm assuming he just got out of school not that long ago, and he has men problems. He got dumped by a guy because the guy just felt like he didn't want to be gay anymore. Basically, was kind of the way that he described it. Like, I was cool with it for a while, but now I'm not cool with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck you. And then he ends up in a relationship with a younger man.
And by younger, we mean high school. And we're not told what year of high school. But he does drink. I'm assuming it's legal in Thailand and that this maybe isn't creepy and that this is like just a cultural difference.
So I was thinking about it really hard. He does say towards the end of the series that Top, who is the high schooler, is studying for his entrance exams. So I'm assuming he's a senior in high school because he's studying for the entrance exam to get into college. So, and I looked at the legal age for drinking, and the legal age for drinking in Thailand is 18.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that he is of legal age. I believe so. But we don't know how old Gus is. We know Gus is somewhere in his 20s, but we don't really know how old Gus is.
Yeah. I'm thinking they're around 25.
I'm hoping so. But it also makes a later story point very, very sad. But still, say 25. We'll say 25. So Gus, Golf, and Kim go, I guess they have like side jobs that they do to make money. And one of their side jobs is that they do like dance performances for people.
Mm-hmm.
And they are commissioned to do a dance performance at the light bulb company's company party.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they go to the company party and they have the funniest dance-off ever.
It's so good. Because they're dancing, and then this one queen from the audience is like, oh, I'm going to show them up. And he comes up to the stage and he starts dancing. So they're on stage doing their routine, and then there's this one queen off to the side dancing, and they're like, absolutely not. So then he comes on stage, and Golf and the other guy have a one-on-one dance battle.
Oh yeah, Golf and the employee. And it's so funny because from the very beginning of that episode, Kim had been talking about how cheap the material of the jumpsuits are.
Yes.
And so like they do a really good job of laying the foundation for different jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they talk about the fact that the suits don't have good elasticity. They talk about how cheap they are. They also mention like, how come I can't see your panty lines, girlfriend?
Uh-huh.
Well, then during the dance-off, Golf is getting it. Like he's like one leg in the air splits, totally getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But the suit is cheap. And when he turns around to like go into a death drop split thing, his entire asshole is to the wind. Well, anyway, after this is over, Gus, Golf, and Kim are headed to the elevator on their way out the building. He runs into a high school student, doesn't pay it any attention, because who does? Other than to say, excuse me, sorry, and then move on. the high school student is the son of the woman who owns the light bulb company. And he takes one look at Gus and is like, I see you. I see you. And pursues Gus. And I think that their relationship is really, really sweet. And I appreciate that they also made mention several times that he and Gus have not slept together.
No, I don't think they've even shared an on-screen kiss. Like, they kissed, like, Top kissed him on the cheek once. But I don't remember them ever having, like, a kiss.
Yeah, so, like, they kept it very PG, and I'm like, okay, it makes it a little less gross. It's still kind of gross, but a little less gross.
Yeah, you're like, I can stomach it for the watch.
Yeah, but the relationship is really complicated because Gus is set to inherit his parents' fortunes, and it's not just a light bulb company. Because, like, when Gus says, oh yeah, your parents want you to take over the light bulb company, he's like, yeah, that's it. So you get the idea that, like, there's more than just a light bulb company at stake here. But his parents are, like, really on him to take over the family business. He kind of wants to be more independent and pursue photography, but he also, like, wants to pursue Gus. And his mom is established from the very beginning that she's extremely homophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, when they get through with their performance at the light bulb company, she's like, you need to not hire those kind of people to do those kinds of disgusting performances. Mm-hmm. Like, she's really, really bad. She's really, really bad. And so by the end of the show, Gus ends up deciding not to pursue Top because Top is young and he doesn't want Top to have to choose between him or his family.
Right. We only dated for a small amount of time too.
Yeah,
so
just a few months.
Like, this might be for the best that we just end it now. You need to figure your family stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, normally I'm not one of those ones like, oh, be self-sacrificing and, you know, put your needs below somebody else's. Right. But in this particular circumstance, I really got where Gus was coming from because he has a little friction with his own dad. And also, Top is really young. As far as we know, he's a high school student. It's really too much to ask him to leave his family behind to be with a guy that he's only known a few months.
Right. I really liked that scene. After he had kind of decided, like, you know what, I'm kind of going to let it be because it needs to be what it will be. And what does he do? They're just sitting on the curb of Gus's house. And, like, Kim's got his arm around him and all of their friends are just there comforting him. I really like that scene because it really just shows you how good of friends that they are and how caring they really are for each other. I mean, we got that earlier with Golf, which we should talk about in a minute, but getting out with Gus too is really nice.
Yeah, and I like what Golf said about the breakup. He's like, you know, I can't even be mad because I didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah, and even his dad was like, you know, the right one will come along eventually. And I loved that because his dad was really down on him on the breakup he had at the beginning of the show.
Right.
He's like, you know, you shouldn't be sitting around here crying about guys. Why don't you go do something with your life? But at the end, the dad was like, you know what? It just wasn't meant to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, family healing. Let's go. All
yes.
Right. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. And we totally missed the fact that at the beginning of the show, they had made a bet that everybody was going to end up finding the love of their life by Chinese New Year's. By the end of the show, they did not. But Gus came the closest to finding the love of his life by Chinese New Year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Golf. I will let you lead this conversation because I enjoyed Golf's storyline, but I also find it incredibly sad.
I totally agree with you. I think it's necessary, though. And I think it's an interesting lesson. Basically, Golf ends up contracting HIV. And that is terrible and it sucks and I feel terrible for him. And when they first brought it up that, you know, his ex called him and basically said, oh, I tell you something, Golf's like, haha, yeah, let's hang out, let's go get dinner. And his ex is like, no, I have HIV, you need to get tested. I thought the next episode was going to be, oh, he doesn't have it. They're going to go party and have fun. No, the next episode was, oh, he has it all right. Like, it's positive. Um, and there's a very sweet moment where he has to tell his mom, and he has all of his friends there. And the mom is like, yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm upset. Yes, this is bad. But what am I going to do? Like, you're my son. And I'm more worried about your safety. And I think that's the appropriate response because, you know, it is somewhat preventable, but at the same time, there's not a lot of education for it. If there's not education for it in America, I doubt that there's education for it in Thailand, you know? The only way I learned anything about the AIDS crisis and how it really affects gay men was I went to GSA when I was in high school. So, like, real talk, thanks to my GSA teacher, shout out to Mr. Fritz. He's not watching, but what a great guy. I love that man. Like, I was able to learn about, you know, really using safe sex, that it's still a problem. It's going to always be a problem because Reagan done fucked up. Fuck that man. Sorry. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. That man could rot in hell. Hope he is. It basically is the lesson of if you are a gay man or you're bisexual, it's important to know about the AIDS crisis and to take the steps to learn about it and how to, you know, prevent it. And also just different stigmas about HIV. Like in Queer as Folk, there's a really great storyline with one of the main characters. I think his name is Michael. I haven't seen that show in a while. I think the main character in Queer as Folk, his name is Michael, and he starts dating an HIV positive man. And his mom is really worried, and his friends are worried. They're like, we don't want you to get it. You should not see this man. And I think they end up being life partners by the end of the series, but it takes them all time to come around to it because the point of that storyline was to break down the stigma of just because you're HIV positive doesn't mean you can only date someone HIV positive. And I think I think they handled it the best they could with this show, because if they went totally serious with it, it breaks the tone of the show, but it still keeps it as this is something that is going to happen and it could happen to you. So learn about it and be careful with it.
Yeah. And if you watch season two has a storyline involving Gulf and a man that he's met that he's dating, and he's having sex with this man, but he hasn't told the man his status, but he's been insisting that the man use condoms every time they have sex. Well, this man, one day they're about to have sex and he insists on not using a condom. And Golf is like fighting him, like, please don't do this. I have to have you use a condom. And he's like, why are you so insistent on using a condom? It's not like you have anything. And then Golf tells him, actually, I have HIV, which is the worst time you want to share that information with
you want to be upfront before you start fucking.
Yes, because, you know, condoms aren't always effective, you know,
right.
So you got to be careful. But one thing that I really like about even just having that storyline in there is something that you said that I've noticed as a parent and somebody who lived through the 80s and 90s at an age where I could perceive things. In the 90s, HIV awareness was everywhere. Like, even if you were a straight person, you were taught about condom usage, about STD screening, about, even as women, using dental dams to have oral sex with women, because we were taught oral sex can give you HIV. And nowadays, it just seems like because our schools have been so pillaged to not give accurate sexual education to our kids, they don't even realize that oral sex is another way that you can contract STDs. A lot of people believe, like, well, I'm clean because I've never had vaginal or penile intercourse. I've only ever had oral sex. And it's like, well, no, those same germs live in your genitals, live in your mouth. The herpes, when you have a herpes spot on your mouth, that's the same kind of herpes you get in your vagina. So if you give oral sex to somebody and you have a herpes cold sore, you can give them genital herpes that way. And a lot of people don't get that education because our schools are so like, the only answer is abstinence. Well, when the answer isn't abstinence, what now?
Right.
So also, I really, go ahead.
But no, you finish. I'm sorry.
I'm just really glad that they brought it up in this show, because there needs to be a reminder that it's cool to be free and loose with your sexuality, but protect yourself, because there's still very real consequences out there for your actions.
Right. And it wasn't someone that he had just kind of like slept with casually, right?
I believe the person he contracted HIV from was the person he had been in a relationship with for 5 years at the beginning of the show. But he does say what broke them up is finding out that his partner had been cheating on him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in a relationship where he's not using safe sex because he believes that he and his partner are monogamous.
Right.
And then finds out that his partner is not. And due to his partner's carelessness, at the tender age of mid-20s, he now has something he will have for the rest of his life.
I would never forgive that man.
Oh no, I'd have to kill him. Like, straight up, if they ask, if I'm in court shackled, like, why'd you do it? He gave me HIV, Your Honor. So, I mean, it is one of those things where we do need to do a really good job of not making it seem like people who live with HIV have something wrong with them or that they did something wrong. So me saying I'd murder somebody for giving me that, it's because of his actions. It's not because he had HIV, I caught it from him. It would be, you cheated on me and you exposed me to behavior when I never did that to you.
Right.
You basically attacked me. And that would be my response for that. But, you know, people live with HIV. The other day, I was looking on Twitter, there was a young girl who was on the Oprah show when she was 12 years old talking about living with HIV, and that was in the mid-90s. She's still alive today and living with HIV. So I say all that to say, it is a reminder that, you know, yeah, it's cute to fall in love with people. It's fun to have sex with people. It's fun to be free. But there is a consequence for everything we do, no matter how kind of harmless we think it is. And especially even in long-term relationships, you have to not be afraid to every once in a while, like, hey, let's just go get tested for the heck of it. You know, so.
And when I say learn about like the AIDS crisis and stuff, I don't mean Rent. Please do not look for Rent as your like, oh, this will teach you about the AIDS crisis. It won't. The music's fun, but it's a terrible, terrible story morality-wise. Just don't engage with it that way. Read a book, look at a documentary, just not Rent. Just because that's like the most popular story with like queer people and AIDS, so.
Yeah, you can do And the Band Played On, you could do Angels in America. There's a lot of different things you can look at.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. Okay, so moving off of that, let's just talk about some of the fun side stories in this show because there are so many fun side stories.
Yes.
Like the one girl who has a black belly button because she refuses to clean her belly.
That shit was gross.
It was so stupid.
It was so gross. One of my favorite. Sorry.
It was set up for a very funny scene, though, with the scene where, like, everybody gets drunk off of Thai moonshine, and they're headed back to the cabin that they rented to go on vacation, and the one friend is drunk and keeps saying, I'm gonna fuck you, and the other friend is passed out, and she's the girlfriend, Natty. And so they're walking past all these people in these different bungalows, and he's all like, I'm gonna fuck her, and she's passed out drunk, and these guys are carrying her to the room. So, of course, the police show up. She's vomited on Top's shorts. So they're pulling off her shirt because it's got vomit on it. He's taking off his shorts because there's vomit on his shorts. And everybody heard them saying, I'm going to fuck you. And she's passed out. So, of course, the police show up and they're like, the fuck's going on here?
Man, this show is more rape conscious than almost all the boys' loves we've watched.
Right. Multiple people saw that shit from a mile away and said, this don't sound right.
Yeah.
Someone call the police.
Meanwhile, we have Plano. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, the police come, and they have to prove that they're gay to the police, because the police don't believe that they're just a bunch of gays.
Yeah, so how do they do it? They bust out into twerking.
Yeah. They're like 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, man. But yeah, like, it was funny to me because, like, I imagine if I was the police and I rolled into that room and I saw that, I'd be like, yeah, everyone's going to jail. Everyone's going to jail.
We're staying here till you guys sober up and can clearly explain to us what's going on.
Right. So that was funny. But like that's the thing, like this story, each episode has its own self-contained story in it. So like again, like the dating through line is a through line, the friendship through line is a through line, but outside of that, there's just random shit coming on. So I'm gonna let you talk about Miss Penn.
Oh, love her. Great episode. So Golf works for a company, ad agency. I don't know. I forgot what he works for.
Just like a TV station or something.
He works at a company and he helps his friends. Basically, they're going to work for 5 days to help plan like a company party. And, you know, there's like, so they're all there and they're all being themselves, queer, loud, proud. And the main boss, Mr. A, I forgot his full name, Mr. A comes in. He's like, oh, you know, he's all fun and giggly and having a good time with them, kikiing, whatever. He leaves. Then Miss Pem comes in, who's like the accountant, big stick in the mud. And she's, you know, telling them, oh, you're not bowing correctly to your elders. Your pants are too loud. I don't want any type of that behavior here. And then Gus and Kim can't hold it any longer. And they start reading her until Golf is like, please shut the fuck up because I do not want to get fired today. So basically the episode becomes a battle of them versus Mrs. Penn, and she is just an uptight bitch, and they are just trying to have a good time until they find out that she has been breaking her own rules, because at one point she was saying you can't use Facebook at work, which fair. But they hear the Facebook ping on her computer late one night because they had to come back because Kim had misspelled a word on one of the reports or whatever, and she needed him to go back and fix it. And it was like, 1 a.m. or something? They were out doing karaoke, they come back, and she is talking with a man on her Facebook and sending some salacious photos.
Also, she's like, so on.
Oh yeah, he keeps calling her my little Yuna, which you're like, great. Girls' generation. I am tickled by the amount of Girls' Generation references we've had in these shows, though. We've had people do the hoot dance. They even did the genie dance before they started to get shot at. But yeah.
We'll talk about that.
We'll get there. You're probably hearing it. You're like, what the fuck? Like, no, we'll talk about it. And they basically trick her they create a fake account that's almost the exact same name as the guy that she was messaging with, just one letter is off to tie it back to the one letter that he had misspelled that Kim had misspelled earlier. And they trick her when everyone goes to lunch break at work to expose herself on camera. And then they're covering it up. They're like, oh, you can't see us, I'll reveal myself when I'm ready. And then she's in the middle of showing her breasts, and then they're like, surprise. So she gets got. And then my favorite part of that is she's like, fuck it. I am a grown-ass woman owning my sexuality. She just becomes a fun person and a fun employee. Yeah. And I'm like, please give me this TV show. I need the TV show of Miss Penn becoming a fully sexually liberated woman in her mid-50s and just becoming a good fucking time. I need that show.
Okay, so to me, the vignette that was the most painful to watch, because the entire time I was screaming, lie, bitch, lie, was when they ran into their friend Miss Lee at the investment conference.
That one made no sense.
So they all went to college together. That's how they all know each other. This friendship group is like 2 of them went to high school together, but the rest of them all went to college together. And Natty she's like a presenter, but she's not like a TV presenter. She's one of those girls that like models and also tries to sell you frying pans and also does like presentations at conferences. Like she's just, I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, they run into their friend at this conference who went to college with them, and she was a senior when they were freshmen, and she was like a wild bitch. And so she is kind of turned her life around. She's like a high-level CEO now, and she's trying to get the youngest son of the company she works for to date her. and they have this presentation that Natty is doing about health. And the girl who's the CEO is like, I really want that reusable shopping bag, which I'm thinking, bitch, you are wearing like fucking Oscar de la Renta shoes. You can buy your own reusable shopping bag. The fuck?
Right.
Yeah, so they get on, her and Gus get on stage, and it's time to ask questions. And they're like, okay, well, which subject do you want to do? Do you want to do nutrition? Do you want to do fitness? Do you want to do cancer? So it's like, I'll do cancer. Okay, what kind? Do you want to do respiratory cancer? Do you want to do cervical cancer, bone cancer? Cervical. And she whispers, just like, oh, I had a cyst removed last year. I know everything about this. They start asking her these super invasive questions. Well, the issue is back when she was in school, she was wild. She slept with anybody she wanted to. She did whatever she wanted to.
I think they called her International Slut as a nickname.
Yeah, because like they're like, it doesn't matter who it is, Asian, African, European, she has them all. So she has been portraying herself as a virgin to the people at her job. Now, this is me. If I told the people at my job I was a virgin, and I was trying to catch a man, I would stay with my lie. I would die on that hill.
Right.
So
why was this any moral conundrum for her?
Right.
Natty doesn't know that she's lying. Or I guess she does.
No, not at all.
But like, who gives a shit, you know?
Yeah, so the guy that she is trying to convince to like date her is in the audience. And she's asked the question, how many sexual partners have you had? And there's 0, 1 to 3, however many. And she ends up choosing like an option that's more than 0, which that was your first fuck up. Then the next question is like, do you always wear condoms? And somehow or another she manages to blurt out, of course I do, because I put it on with my mouth. And at that point the game is through.
Yeah.
Because that's experienced hell work. That's not
yeah. Level 5 hoeing.
You know, because I mean there's teeth involved. You got to be careful. So like this is obviously more than one partner. But it's just like, girl, why didn't you lie? If you had said 0, you wouldn't even been asked the other questions, because if you've never had sex, you would not have had to use a condom or anything, because like you've never had that. So like I don't see why that was a storyline, but it was funny to watch her like totally lose her shit up on the stage. She was hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun, but it was silly.
Yeah.
That's the show.
So I will let you talk about the last kind of vignette. The vignette with them going on the trip to Kunkan with Miss Canada.
Yeah, so that was wild. There's basically they're trying to get Gus out of his funk, and it's Natty's like aunt's place, and they're just gonna go visit there, and they're gonna go on a small trip with friends. But Natty also invited this friend of hers who she hadn't seen in a while, named we're gonna call her Miss Canada. I forgot. Apparently, she went to study abroad. We're gonna call her Miss Canada, and she comes and she is super high maintenance. She's speaking in like very broken Thai with a lot of English thrown in. Like the aunt comes to pick him up from the airport in a pickup truck, and she goes, "Okay, can you guys sit in the back?" And she's like, absolutely not. And then when she gets to the front of the car, she's like, the guy driving the car looks like he's gonna murder me. And then it's like, girl, shut the fuck up. These are nice people giving you a free vacation.
Yeah.
So they go to basically like a small music concert outside in the town that they're going to. And the guys start getting into a dance-off with this other few people. And they're going at it. And it's all K-pop dances, by the way. You get some Blackpink in there. There's the Arrogant dance from Brown Eyed Girls. There's Girls' Generation. They're hitting the hits, you know, which was fun. I'm sure you probably noticed them too. You're like, oh, that's that, and then that's that.
Well, they said it before they even started. They're like, we should do the K-pop routine. Yeah. Are you sure? Like, yes, totally. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So it's a lot of fun Easter eggs if you're like especially if you're like a second-gen K-pop fan. A lot of good girl group Easter eggs. And then all of a sudden, someone pulls out a gun and starts shooting. And you're like, this took a turn. Basically, there's an active shooter at this festival, and they're in a booth they're like in like a carnival booth trying to like hide away from it. But Miss Canada is like, no, this is scary. I'm going to leave. And they're trying to pull her back like, no, if you go out there, you'll get shot. Miss Canada pulls away, runs out, boom, shot, dead on the ground. You're like, oh, what the fuck? Like, this took a turn. Episode ends. Episode picks up. They're all like revealing secrets to each other, like, oh, like I pulled this prank on you, I'm so sorry, just kidding, I love you. Gus calls Top. Like, oh, I love you, but I'm gonna die soon, which terrifying message to get on Top. Like, terrifying. And they're all huddled together, and then Miss Canada wakes up and goes, oh, I didn't get shot, this is a bucket, I got hit with a bucket, and this is just like red syrup, which you're like, okay. And then the girl that they were having the dance off with comes to rescue them and is like, oh, come this way, it's a gang fight, like, we need to go. So she kind of escorts them kind of out of the area, and then she's trying to say, where are you guys trying to get to? And they're trying to, but she has like a thick dialect. Like, they can't understand her. And then finally, Miss Canada just starts speaking the most fluent fucking Thai and gets them to where they need to go. And that's the story of the active shooter. And no one has trauma, and it's never brought up again. And as an American, it was kind of weird. Like,
it was terrifying.
I'm like, ooh, I don't know about this one, guys.
Yeah, because you really thought Miss Canada was dead at the end of episode 11. You're like, oh my God, this bitch is dead. So that was something else. But then also you find that they were shooting over squid, which is like, what? You guys brought guns and bats over squid? Somebody got murdered. We literally saw somebody get murdered.
Yes, dead over squid. It didn't seem like there was a shortage of squid. I would like to know what the squid conundrum was.
So at the end, they end up having a volleyball game, and they kind of reconcile themselves to hoping to have a better future than they had previously. And then I guess Gus is telling his story on Facebook and notices a lot of people are really vibing with it, which kind of sets up for like the whole reason why this whole show happened. But he also gets a Facebook message from Top, and that's how the story ends basically.
Yeah, it's just a cliffhanger. It's Top like saying, hey, this is like a burner account, but it's Top. And then cut to black. And you're like, well, yeah. Now right. I don't watch season 2.
Yeah, you gotta watch season 2. But I really, really enjoyed this show. There's, like I said, it's strung together. So like if there was one negative point to put to it, you feel like there's a lot of stuff that's unfinished. You feel like you start one storyline for it to not really lead anywhere. And those kinds of things are a little bit annoying. But that's kind of also life. Sometimes you just go through an experience and it wraps itself up and then it's never a part of your life again. And then there's other stuff that sticks with you, like the necklace. The necklace that he thought that the prostitute had stolen from him, that Golf thought the prostitute stole, he wears that necklace throughout the remainder of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So like some little things stay and then other things just kind of go by the wayside. And when you're used to watching your typical boys love show where like the plot remains center for the majority of the story, it can be a little off-putting. But this, again, I keep comparing it to Sex and the City because that's kind of what the first few seasons of Sex and the City were. Each episode was kind of its own little vignette, but what kept everything related were the friend group in the story.
Right. I mean, I really don't even think it's like you really can't go into the show thinking, oh, this is a boys love. Mm-hmm. It's literally just a sitcom, but the main characters are gay. Like, it's not at all, I would not even call this a boys love at all, you know?
Yeah, it's just really a gay slice of life show, but it is very entertaining. I just kind of wish that there were some more plot threads that were strung together. I wish it had not ended on the cliffhanger that it ended on, because you really do feel like, hey, wait a minute. And even though Natty was not my favorite character, I really wish they had given her a little bit more in the romance department, because I feel like Golf got a bit more in the romance department. Kim got a bunch of hookups in the show, but Natty only got the one Yoshi thing, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's my feelings for the show. If I had to give the show a rating, I feel comfortable with a 8 flat. And that's because like the ending is just so kind of that I don't feel like I can give it much more than that.
I am going to give it a 9. And the reason I'm going to give it a 9 is because this show is exactly what it is trying to be. I think I like that it's these little vignettes. It's perfectly fun. I would totally rewatch it. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I have some problems with, like, I guess I would like more from the ending. But honestly, you know, that's enough for me to give it a 9. I had a good time. It's exactly what it wanted to be. And I appreciate that. So, perfectly
Yeah, this
fun
is a
show.
super fun show. So, instead of Samantha's rant today, I wanted to talk to Mason about some things I saw in this show that I think relate to almost every single rant we've ever had about Boys Love the entire time we've been doing our vlogs. Okay, so I believe it was last week that we had the rant about the writer from Psycho Milk saying they prefer their Boys Love actors to be straight.
Ugh, yes.
And there's the whole scene in episode 2 of this show about how a straight seeming man is so treasured in the gay community of Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like one of the things that this show does a really good job of, and the reason why I say I wish that more people who watch Boys Love would watch this show, is that it really talks about like how the gay community in Thailand see themselves and what their kind of desires and wants and their stereotyping and their prejudices are.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of that is in this show. A ton of it is in this show. Like they talked about when they were actually episode 2 has a whole bunch of bangers, but there's one scene in episode 2 where Kim and Gulf are fighting over Champy, and Kim says, "Oh yeah, Gulf sleeps with anybody, even Africans. You could do a U-turn in his hole." And as an African American, I was kind of like, "Oh, so it's like that."
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I get that the one thing is African, you're probably thinking big dicks, but also like a lot of people don't understand that like foreigners are treated pretty well in Thailand, but they're still seen as outsiders and they're not acceptable life partners in a lot of ways in Thailand. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times when we are watching Thai boys love shows and we're like, this would never fly in America, or this would never fly in the West. I can't believe that this is the storyline. In Thailand, their shows are produced for them. Right. And the shows are produced for their home audience because that's where they make their money. They make their money doing fan meetings. They make their money selling endorsements. They make their money selling songs. Like everything is to make as much money as possible in the domestic market.
Right.
And so we get tired of hearing people call themselves wifey. But in the show, they call themselves wifey.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, we have problems with it, but this isn't, even though it is very inaccurate, like most boys' loves are inaccurate, it does in a lot of ways represent what is seen as regular culture, I guess, amongst gay men in Thailand.
Right.
And that's one thing that I feel like a lot of people who critique K-pop, who critique boys love, who critique a lot of these different genres that are not native to America or Europe don't understand is that the domestic audience is always the target audience, always has been, always will be. Mm-hmm. It is the hope that you can pick up international audiences and that you can find an avenue to make money off of international audiences. But when we holler about there's no subtitles, when we holler about there's no access, when we holler about this isn't my style of music, or why don't you speak in English when you're doing an Instagram live, please understand, this is not for you. This is not for me. This is for the home team. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that people who watch Boys Love spend enough time with that in mind. Prime example, and I hate to keep going back to this because I feel like that's done and dusted, our Game Boys review. I said when I was talking about the character of Pearl that I felt like she went to the Filipino School of Acting because her acting was really over the top. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that is definitely a style marker in Filipino sitcoms and television shows. That's not the desired acting style in America.
Mhm.
And there are some things that even when we're doing our reviews, we're outside the culture and we're not going to catch it. There were so many inside jokes or like cultural jokes in this show that just over my head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the dialect thing at the shooting, I mean, I didn't laugh because it's like I don't speak Thai. I don't really know. I'm sure it's funny if you speak the language though.
Right. And so, like, I just really feel that it's our job as people who are ingesting media outside of our own. It's okay to come at it with your viewpoint because you've lived the life you live. You don't really have a choice. But I think we also need to be careful about how we critique things and kind of having some understanding of, yes, it's not the way I would do things. And there are things that I consider an absolute wrong, but also this is not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not I'm not here to kind of force myself onto these people and what's appropriate for their culture, even though I'm still gonna shit talk Mame forever because I don't even think in Thailand the shit that she writes is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are other things where like the whole I'm tired of people calling themselves the wifey and being the husband and wife. If that's a part of their culture, that's a part of their culture, and just gotta leave it there.
Right.
But like, sexual assault and those kind of things, we're still allowed to call those out for what they are. Because even in the midst of this show, as campy as it is, when the people thought there was a suspected drugging and rape happening, they called the police.
Right.
So
yeah. Critiquing a show not made for your culture can be hard. It's like a really big discussion with anime all the time. There was even a very unfun Twitter discourse where people are saying that there should be no Black people in anime. And it's like, ooh, this is getting weird, guys. So, yeah,
I just don't understand that because, okay, I'm not a big anime watcher. I'm not even going to pretend to be so because you'd be able to see right through me. But there are so many anime characters who are European people that the argument that there should be no Black anime characters is dumb because if we're saying it's because of the culture, then there should be no white people in anime.
Right. It's a bad argument and it makes no sense, which is why it's just racism,
Yeah.
But the argument really is like, even if there are Black people, sometimes they're caricatures or they're always the villain. And it's like, but why? But everyone on Twitter talking about it was coming at it from an American perspective,
Right. And the people who write these shows, they're writing them for the home team, especially when you're talking about anime and manga. Because truth be told, it is so hard to get access to things outside of Japan that you can't even really look at it like this is made for me. This is absolutely written for me. No, it's not.
It's never made for the international audience.
Ever. And so if they have a
cognizant though,
they should absolutely be cognizant, but I think for us to say that there shouldn't be a certain type of character in their media, again, we're not from there, and we don't always know what those characters mean. And I think one of the best ways to kind of synthesize or process information, if you're kind of like, how does it actually feel? How do people on the ground floor living there actually feel about a subject? There's so many videos on YouTube where people are interviewed about their opinions about things from the country, like Asian Boss. Asian Boss constantly brings up different social issues. They ask people in Korea, Japan, wherever they happen to be, how do you feel about A, B, and C social issue? Like when I was trying to find out more information about how lady boys and trans people are treated in Thailand, I think I watched an Asian Boss video where they interviewed trans women and regular people about how do you feel about trans people in Thailand. And I really think that rather than trying to amplify our Western voices about what we feel is appropriate for somebody else's culture, I think that we need to invest some time in looking at the media that comes out of it that is actually amplifying the voices of the people that live there.
Right.
because we have so much more access to that now than we ever have with YouTube being a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, trying to talk over people and telling them this is how you need to be, I think that there's always, you could be better. There's always, you could be more understanding. There's always like, let me educate you on something. But I think just completely talking over people and not trying to take their experiences into perspective is the wrong move. Prime example for me is when it comes to Black people and K-pop. I am an African American woman, and I find a lot of my culture that I grew up with in K-pop. That's why I love K-pop. I grew up on 80s and 90s and 2000s R&B and hip hop, and there's a ton of that in K-pop. I love the music. But then there's also like cornrows and dreadlocks and things like that, which I'm not a big fan of in K-pop. And knowing how homogenous the society is in Korea, I don't think they accurately understand that when they're using those hairstyles and things like that, and they call it, oh, it's hip hop hair. It's not really hip hop hair. They don't understand the history of it. And so I oftentimes try my very best to hear what they have to say about a situation and then offer an educational input. So I did a video talking about how, hey, in case you were wondering why it is that the hair is an issue, let me tell you what the struggle is for African Americans in America when it comes to wearing those exact same hip hop hairstyles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to hear what you have to say, but I also want to give you a little bit of education. But I don't feel like it's my role to get in a fight every single time a K-pop idol has dreadlocks, or every single time a K-pop idol has cornrows, or every single time, a K-pop idol decides to perm their hair to make it look like they have an afro. The way that I express my opinion about those things is I don't support it. I don't buy the album, or I don't buy the single, or I don't watch the show, or I don't talk about that particular piece of media because I want it to live in obscurity. But
Yeah.
it is tough. It is very tough.
Yeah. That's fair.
Mm. All right. Insta of the day, Mason.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So Mason's doing the Insta of the day, and I'm doing the manga manhwa of the day. I know it's been like the upside down place around here, but it'll get better later on. We're just both very busy.
I just haven't read any manga. I've been reading Haikyuu, but that's not a boys' love. I mean, in my mind it is, but canonically it's not. So, yeah. But I queer everything that I read, so everything's a boys' love to me. Okay, first one, there's going to be 4. First one is Jaylerr, spelled Jaylerr. No spaces, no underscores, just Jaylerr. And he is the guy that plays Top.
Who looks just like Top from Big Bang, by the way.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. He so looks like Top, it's crazy. Yes, he does. Say what you want to. Say what you want to. He looks like Top.
You do this all the time. You're always like,
he looks like Top.
Looks like this, and then everyone disagrees.
Okay, leave it in the comment section down below if you've ever seen this kid before. He looks like Top. I'm sorry. He looks like Top. He looks like Top.
I remember that one time you said we were watching Produce X, and you were like, that guy looks like Tarian, and we were all like, what?
He had the same mouth.
Maybe the mouth, but like he has a much longer face, completely different eyes, a different nose.
This kid looks like Top.
So, you know what? We'll make a poll on Twitter. We'll have to poll it on Twitter. All right.
Let me choose the photos to do side by sides, and then we'll do the poll, because he looks like Top. I'm sorry. I will not take the slander. He looks like Top.
Is that slander? Okay, next one is Cindy Pwung. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm very sorry. Spelled SINDY _ PWOONG. He plays golf. Up next is Paupech Demon.
This is why we spell everything.
Yeah. PAOPETCH _ DMOND. He plays Gus, and he looks very different with black hair. Like it took me a minute because I was like, who the heck is he? I'm like, oh, he just has his, because in the show it's like bleach blonde, but this is his natural hair color. It just looks different. And finally, we have Sun Terry, spelled Sunterry, no spaces, all lowercase, and he plays Kim. Very good cast. I don't know if any of these people are actually gay, but I will say I feel like they all did a really good job. Like, I feel like I was in on it and I was laughing with them, not laughing at them.
Yes, I think that the guy who plays Golf is more than likely a gay man. His Instagram reads very much like he's a sister, but I don't want to assume, but just scrolling through the Instagram, I feel like that's a very accurate determination based on the evidence presented.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, I have the manhwa of the day. I'm choosing BJ Alex. I read BJ Alex quite a while ago, actually, and it has one of my least favorite tropes in the world, the whole, like, super tsundere treat you bad, and then when you leave, they realize what they're missing, and they call you back in. But this particular manhwa, because it's from Korea, has really nice illustrations. The sex is drawn very, very well. But also the plot is kind of interesting because the plot is about a guy who is in the closet. He's his first year in university, and he is a fan of a BJ on what's basically like this comic universe's version of Africa TV. So if you've never heard of BJs before, Africa TV is this thing that happens in Korea where people have streaming channels, kind of like Twitch, and you can pay them in balloons. And basically, you buy this online currency, you give it to the person that you like, and you pay for their favor. And they'll shout you out when they're doing their live stream, and maybe they'll talk about you like, oh, my top supporters today are, Mr. Wiz and Ding Dong 2000, like that kind of thing. And so this guy is watching this BJ on this channel, and he's like the #1 channel on the service that he watches. And the guy is really notable because he always wears a mask, and he has this birthmark on the side of his body. Well, he goes to a school event where he's with like his Sundays, the seniors of the school, and they're all drinking. He gets incredibly drunk, and one of the seniors takes him home, and he vomits on the senior's shirt. And when the senior takes off his shirt, he realizes, oh my God, you're BJ Alex. Which, of course, you wear a mask because you don't want to be caught. So for somebody to recognize you and know who you are, your actual real life identity, it's a big deal. So he's like, okay, so how do I keep you from letting people know that you know me? And they engage in a illicit sexual relationship based on this insider knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And, damaged characters do hurtful things, yada, yada, yada. It's really nice looking sexual art. So if you like nice looking sexual art, I highly recommend it. Also, it gives me an opportunity to talk about a case very recently in Korea about a man who was several $1,000s in debt behind giving money to these BJs on Africa TV. He had given thousands and thousands of dollars to these female presenters on Africa TV, to the point that he was thousands of dollars in debt, living out of his car. Well, a young girl gets off her shift at the convenience store she works at. He hits her over the head, robs her of the $10 in her wallet and her bank card, goes to 7-Eleven and buys $100 worth of snacks. He killed this girl. And she was walking home because she was trying to save money by not having to call a taxi. But yeah.
Did he mean to kill her or just rob her?
He meant to rob her, but just the callous nature of hitting someone over the head, and you have to hit them with enough force to kill them, and then robbing her of her $10 worth of currency and stealing her bank card. She had to have been in a position where you had to have known she was very, very hurt, and just left her in the street.
Is he in jail now?
he's been arrested, and like the country's in an outroar because there's been a big controversy about the whole BJ culture. A lot of ex-idols have become BJs. For instance, Go from In Black, him and his wife have like a streaming channel that they do. One of the members of Crayon Pop recently got in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's been a thing that people have been talking about in Korea for a really long time, but this particular attack has really put it back into the forefront, and there's probably going to be a lot of regulations and other shit going on behind this, because I mean it's terrible. It's terrible that this happened, but like that Korea's not the only people that struggle with this. There was a recent murder case here in America about a year ago. This guy who was giving money to some Russian woman who was doing the exact same thing, like a pay-for-play type of thing, like OnlyFans. And he went into thousands of dollars in debt, started stealing from his family, and it had gotten to the point where his family was going to throw him out of the house because he had stolen thousands of dollars from like his cousins, his aunts and uncles, and his family. Well, one day, all but one member of his family turns up dead, slaughtered. He killed his mother, his father, and his brother because they were going to put him out of the house, and he was not going to have access to steal more money from them to pay to this Russian OnlyFans woman that he had been sending money to, and lying about the fact that he was a famous gamer and he's so rich and he has so much stuff.
Don't men suck?
It's not even just men suck, it's stupid men, because quiet as it's kept or as loud as it's featured, if you're a man who has a whole bunch of money for real, you don't have to pay somebody on OnlyFans to show you their titties or their ass. Real women are willing to flock to you and give you the time of day. You know, like there's entire rap songs about women who are talking about, I will date a man for new purses and money. Yeah. So you don't have to.
Just for pictures. Of
ass. Yeah, so you have access to these things.
Just to kiss me.
So yeah, like you can get a woman. It's not hard to do. Women, you could get a man. It's not super hard to do if you got time. But it's one of those deals where it's like, I think that social media is great. I think social media is so wonderful because, I mean, I would have never met Mason if it wasn't for social media. It's fantastic. But we live so much of our lives on social media that I think we get so invested in the person we can become online that we kind of start to put reality in second place and our real lives in second place. And for somebody to commit a murder behind their online life just goes to show we kind of need to all put this shit into perspective. And it's not just, you know, spending money on OnlyFans or spending money on BJs. It's even fan wars. People who are willing to dox somebody else because you said something bad about the K-pop group I follow, or you said something that I didn't like about my favorite group's comeback. Again, there's reality, and then there's this online life. And people are getting killed behind stuff they're doing online. Gamers have been doxxed before or swatted because they were doxxed online before. A man got killed because a gamer was being swatted and the SWAT team showed up at the wrong house and killed the person who lived in that wrong house. You know, there's reality and then there's this online shit, and we really need to get a handle of this, especially because the real world is scary right now. The real world is super scary. Rona still hasn't taken out Trump, so we still are living in his administration. And until we're out of it, it's scary as shit out here.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of doxing people, it is rich that Twitter had to release a statement like, we will not accept any death threats or harassment on this platform. When people were like making jokes about Trump getting corona, but it's like, Twitter, baby, honey, where you been?
Yeah.
Where you been? Just like pick any black celebrity and look at their comments. Just Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Pick
any gay person. Pick them.
Pick any comments under any K-pop fan cam.
Yeah.
Any of them. I hope these bitches die. I hope all the K-pop stans go to hell. Like, it's rampant. It's rampant. But real life is scary because, you know, regardless of the current state of his health, Trump and his administration are still in power. A lot of civil liberties and protections are being rolled back every single day. Judges are being installed for life that are going to be making terrible decisions against people that are going to further restrict our freedoms because they will interpret the law against us. And because of that, I can see why being online is the respite that a lot of people need to escape the horrible realities of what the world is offering you right now. But that's another reason why you've got to sometimes divest yourself from online, because putting your head in the sand and hiding in these online waters instead of getting out there and voting when you should be voting and being involved in the civics of your community is only going to make your reality worse. You have to step back into the fray and you have to deal with it if you want it to get any better.
That's scary.
Scary as shit, but I mean, what's the alternative? You're here until you're dead.
Yeah. Wow, that adrenaline rush Thursday night, though, let me tell you.
So we'll leave it at there. Our next show is going to be Mr. Hart.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, we're watching it on Viki. Okay. It is the second Boys Love that's been produced by the company that made Where Your Eyes Linger. I've watched it all the way through, but it's a really quick watch. Each episode is like 10 minutes maybe, and there's 8 sections. So it's basically about the length of a movie. Right. But it's going to be one that Mason is going to love because it's got one of his favorite characters of all time, the continual optimist who is completely earnest and sincere and always looks on the bright side.
Give me the Narutos and the Hinatas of the world.
Yes. And that person is next to like a Mr. Gloomy, pouty. Yes.
The power dynamic I thrive for. Yes. I just hope the soundtrack is also banging because the soundtrack to that other show, what was it called again?
Where Your Eyes Linger.
Where Your Eyes Linger. That soundtrack is great.
Yes, that soundtrack was really, really good. Very underrated. But yeah. So expect Mason to show up with stars in his eyes because
I'm excited. I'll be watching right now. All right, everyone. Have a good week. Stay safe.
Bye.